Hello and welcome to Bringing Education Home. I'm Herb.
And I'm Kristina. And together we bring you experts and ideas to help grow healthy, happy, successful families that are both inside
and outside the box. If you like the show, be sure to follow Kristina on Facebook.
And please leave us a like review on your favorite podcast platform.
Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Rich Holman. Rich has a varied U.S. business career in real estate, mortgage banking, securities publishing, and investment banking industries. He holds a BBA degree in chemical engineering management from the University of Texas and an MBA from the Ohio State University. Prior to moving full-time to Medellin, Colombia in 2007 and starting his first real estate company, Rich lived in Naples, Florida, Atlanta, Los Angeles, Minneapolis, and Boston, and he was originally from Texas, where he resided for 12 years. In 2007, Rich started a real estate company to assist foreigners purchase properties in Medellin. By 2019, the company had grown to 110 employees with offices in 6 cities and 3 countries. Post-pandemic, he launched his new real estate company, Primavera Realty of Medellin. But we're not going to be talking about any of that today, because after 7 years of research, Killing You Softly is his first book, a hard-hitting expose on the world's biggest killer, which is sugar. He was dying 7 years ago, and now at the age of 80, he is in great health, off of all meds, and is living proof of what can be achieved by doing one thing, which is quitting sugar. So welcome, Rich. It is a pleasure to have you here. I'm really looking forward to this conversation because I agree with you that sugar is a serious problem and a big hidden killer. So thank you for coming here today.
Thank you so much for having me, and I can't wait to get into this topic because it's very near and dear to my heart. And I actually have a chapter in my book called Killing Our Kids, if you can imagine that. So I'm ready to cover any questions and however you want to proceed.
That is wonderful. And just for those people who are only listening on audio, we are looking at Rich on video. You go visit our YouTube channel where we also produce and put out these shows, and he does not look 80. Not at all. So obviously something he's learned, something he's doing is helping him not look the age that he says he is. So Rich, this is amazing. So sugar, we talk about it a lot, and we know that it's a problem because of obesity and all these other things. But your title of your book is Killing You Softly. And so let's just jump right in. Why is sugar that dangerous thing that we know we need to get off of, but is so hard to get away from?
Wow. Okay. I'm going to answer this a couple ways. I think, first of all, nobody covers this in the books, but I did after 7 years of research. Let's go back to where sugar started.
Okay.
Homo sapiens didn't eat sugar for 200,000 years. Wasn't around. During the medieval times, it was a little bit around. It was more expensive caviar, and the only people who ate it were the dukes, the kings, the bishops, and the knights. And they were all fat and had gout, but they didn't relate it to sugar. But sugar didn't go mainstream until about 150 years ago when they started processing it. And it really didn't go mainstream until after the 2 world wars because it had sugar rationing. So sugar suddenly came in the 50s in the United States, and they started putting it into processed food and fast food and soft drinks and TV dinners, because what a great ingredient. Tastes good, preserves, provides bulk, and it's very addictive, but it's like the perfect ingredient for some people to make some money. So the 50s is when in the United States, we had our first generation of sugar addicts. I was born in the first generation of sugar addicts. We're now in the United States, we're in a 3rd generation of sugar addicts, and the rest of the world is the 1st or 2nd generation. So that's a little background on sugar, but what happened along the way? And what happened along the way is an absolute tragedy, because I hate to say this, but you cannot believe everything that comes out of Washington, D.C. You need to question everything, and does it tie into money? I was in the Vietnam War. I served. My dad was military. I believed everything in Washington. I believed Nixon's domino theory. It was all BS. They lied to us about many of the wars we've been in, but they lied to us about other things. And it's so sad. And sugar is the biggest lie of them all, because it's a huge cover-up. And yet it's a big moneymaker, because the USDA subsidizes stuff that's killing us: wheat, soya, corn, sugar. Right. And all the nutrients are stripped out, and then that goes into processed food. So big food creates this horrible stuff that the United States gets 70% of the calories from, processed food, which is not food. And then big pharma and big health make trillions of dollars treating the sickness of chronic disease. Chronic disease is caused by what we eat. Now that's the hard, cold facts. I cover all this in my book. And it's like, it's 7 years of research. It's all there. All the footnotes are there. I've read all the books. I've done all the studying. I know exactly what they've done and how they're doing it. But the lies we've been told, you know, that sugar's bad for you, fat's bad for you. I mean, that fat's bad for you, calories in, calories out. I mean, all this ridiculous stuff. A food pyramid, which is ridiculous. It should be like that. The stuff you can eat is at the top, not at the bottom. So we're now the sickest country in the world, the United States. We're number 47 in life expectancy and dropping.
Wow.
Our time in the hospital now with doctors has increased from 10 years to 13 years. So we're spending more time sick and less time living. But here's the headline that should be around the world, and it should be in the front page of every newspaper every single day, and it relates exactly to what you guys are doing. Today's youth, today's kids in the United States will be the first generation not to outlive their parents in the history of our republic. That is headline. That is sad. And yet not a peep, not a word. So why is this?
Yeah.
Why is this happening? And how is it being avoided where nobody seems to know? And the reason is very, very simple. Because the messages in the media is controlled by the money interest. There's 183 countries in the world. Do you know how many have direct to consumer advertising big pharma? Want to guess?
One.
Two. New Zealand and the United States. I don't know why New Zealand, but the United States, big pharma advertisers, they control the biggest advertiser in the legacy media, all the mainstream media, everywhere. And they're not doing it to sell their products. Who's going to buy that when you hear all the side notes, how bad it is? They're doing it to control the message, because those companies, those employees of New York Times and CNN and all the rest of, you know, big pharma is paying those kids' mortgages.
Yeah.
So not a peep. So they're controlling the message. And how did this all really evolve? How did it get started? How did processed food get to be so big? Well, I don't know if you guys, where you were when tobacco was on television. I know the last ad was 1972 in the Johnny Carson show, but big tobacco, after about 40, 50 years having free reign, selling a horrible addictive drug, nicotine, they started getting sued. They saw the writing on the wall. They said, what are we going to do? Well, check in the 80s and 90s. The biggest leverage buyout in the 90s was RGR Nabisco, purchased by a tobacco company. Tobacco moved from tobacco and nicotine into processed foods. They went from Joe Camel for the kids to Tony the Tiger. And they're using the same marketing tactics to get the kids hooked, get them sick, and then, you know, and then big pharma and big health make all the money treating them. It's a horrible system. And the solution is actually very, very simple. Just quit eating sugar. Now,
So
I say
something
that
you
simple.
said there, so you said it up first, is that sugar is addictive. Now, to a lot of people, they would say, what do you mean sugar is addictive? They don't see sugar as actually being an addictive substance because it's in everything. Like European bread, we've had people from Europe come over here and say, oh, this is what our cake tastes like when they eat our bread because there's so much sugar in our bread. Our children in school, they get like 10 times what a pregnant woman is supposed to get in sugar just in like one of those little cups of milk. So they add so much sugar just to milk. And so we are, and then they over sugar kids, which makes them kind of hyper. And then they expect them to sit in a classroom in these little boxes and sit still. And then when they can't sit still, then they put them on other drugs like Ritalin to calm them down. And so they see the Ritalin, they see the other drugs, they see all these other things, but they don't take it back to the most addictive substance that's ever been created, which is actually sugar. So first off, I think a lot of people don't actually know that sugar is an addiction, that sugar is addictive, and it's one of the hardest to break. I've kicked it like 3 times, but I'm also part of an addiction recovery group. And I know that relapse is actually part of addiction recovery. And so I keep relapsing into sugar because I know how bad it is for me, and I still keep falling into it. Now, with all that being said, is there a difference between the white sugar that we're pretty much talking about, and the sugars in natural foods like fruit, because there's a lot of fruit that is really high in sugar. So is the natural fruit, because we eat a lot more fruit now than we used to as well, even in seasons when it doesn't grow, is the fruit sugar, the natural sugar, just as bad for us as the processed sugars?
Two topics here: addiction and what is sugar. Sugar is one of the lies, because first of all, there's 50 different names for sugar. And they say, oh, it's healthy sugar, it's natural sugar, it's cane sugar, blah, blah, blah. Sugar is the same. It has two things: fructose and glucose. That's it. Two things. Now, glucose isn't bad for you, but you can get glucose from almost anything. Fructose is what is bad. Fructose, you cannot metabolize. The human body was not designed to eat fructose. When you eat a poison, it goes only to one place: the liver. The liver has to try to metabolize that poison. So the liver processes or metabolizes fructose. Now, what happens during that process? This is really interesting. And I try to keep it pretty simple, the book, but I've read 30 very technical books about this subject. But basically what happens is the liver requires energy to metabolize fructose. It's called ATP. So it starts taking ATP from the body. So really, sugar does not increase your energy. You get this little burst, but then you go into a deficit because the liver is now requiring energy. Now, what happens when it starts using up that ATP and it still needs to process that poison? Well, it sends a signal. A signal that we've had in our bodies for 200,000 years. It's a hormonal response, and it says, I'm hungry. I need more food. I need energy. So now this person gets a signal. Now, what are they eating? 70% chance they're eating processed food, which is not food. They're eating the same crap that caused the signal in the first place. So that's why they always get these sugar cravings. You're always craving the carbs, because you have this repetitive cycle, eventually, which leads to diabetes or prediabetes or obesity and high blood pressure and everything else, and chronic disease. It's a vicious circle. Now, is sugar addictive? I could show you 50 studies that sugar is more addictive than cocaine. You put rats and give them a choice of sugar water and cocaine water, they'll always take the sugar. I have a chapter in my book called The Cocaine Connection, and I have a chart that compares cocaine to sugar. Sugar and cocaine, they're both white, both processed, both come from a plant, both used socially, both can be smoked, both can be chewed, both original Coca-Cola formula. They both are highly addictive. At least with cocaine, you can lose some weight. Sugar, you can't.
Right.
And this is what our kids are eating. Yeah. And it's so sad. And I cover this in detail in my book, not only killing our kids, but also the women's love affair with sugar. And I target women. If you look at the cover of my book, that's not a man's face there. That's a woman's face. Now, why did I do that? Because the women are more influential in terms of what we eat. The kids, the husbands, the wives, the girlfriends, whatever, they're sort of doing all the shopping. And it's like they should be protecting our kids. And what are they doing? How do we reward our kids? We got birthdays, we got Halloween, we got Christmas, we got Easter, we got 4th of July, you name it. And we're having all these occasions. We're giving kids sugar. And what is it doing to our kids? Well, I'll tell you what it's doing. I just mentioned this is the first generation in history that's not going to outlive their parents, but kids now are being born pre-diabetic, obese, and addicted to sugar right out of the womb. Oh. Now, when my mom was pregnant with me, she drank martini. She didn't know any better. She smoked cigarettes, didn't know any better, but she was eating real food.
Right.
I survived. But the women today, they're not doing the drugs. They're not, smoking. They're not drinking. They're eating pizza and cheeseburgers and ice cream and soft drinks and pastries and you name it. Yep. Hey, processed food. We're eating crap. And that is going into the fetus and infecting that baby. And our kids today are being destroyed by it. When I was growing up, and I'm 80, so when I was growing up, we never heard of ADHD. Kids weren't depressed. They weren't fat. They weren't nervous. It was cool. Yeah. But today, the autism and the diabetes and the obesity and the mental stuff, when you eat something and you put something in your mouth, it needs to do three things. Number one, protect the liver. Number two, feed the gut. And number three, support the brain. Sugar and processed foods do none of those. None of those. And there's a direct link thing. Alzheimer's is now called diabetes 3. There's a link to depression. There's a link to mental instability tied into sugar.
Yeah.
So we're killing our kids right now, and we don't know any better. And moms, you got to wake up.
Yeah.
And let me tell you one other quick thing. I've had the pleasure being here in Medellin. I get really interesting clients because I believe you'll live longer, better, and healthier here. I mean, this is like the perfect climate, perfect weather, perfect food.
Yeah.
And I had the great pleasure to meet two different families that understand what I'm saying, well, even beyond it. They have sugar-free kids. One family had 3 and 5-year-old, one was a 5 and 7-year-old. I've never seen kids like this in my life. These kids are like old souls. They're calm, they're peaceful, they're attentive, they're sharp.
Wow.
They're not nervous, they're not fidgety, they're not interrupting. I don't know if you ever met sugar-free kids, but we've got to get our kids not only off the sugar, but make them to be the advocates, make them to be the ones say, hey, grandpa, put your seatbelt on. Or hey, dad, don't eat that. That's got sugar in it. We got to turn them into advocates. Right now, we're just turning them into sick little puppets, and it's so sad. And it's our fault.
Can you go back and list those 3 things again? When you put something in your mouth, it should do these 3 things, and then maybe give us a couple of examples of those kinds of foods that you're talking about.
All right. Well, first thing is when you put anything in your mouth that's healthy, like fruits, vegetables, meat, chicken, fish, butter, nuts, vegetables of any type, basically anything without a label on it, right. It protects the liver. It doesn't cause insulin responses. It doesn't, you don't have to metabolize poison. It feeds the gut. The bacteria love the fiber, and they love that stuff, So, and it supports the brain. It doesn't cause problems with sugar and things that it causes penetrating the brain. It doesn't cause inflammation, doesn't cause Alzheimer's. So, but when you eat sugar and processed food, it doesn't do any of those things. It stresses the liver. It doesn't feed the gut, and you don't feed your gut, a lot of bad things happen. And then they're showing all the evidence of what it does to the brain. There's psychiatrists now, they're taking their patients off SDRs and putting them on keto diets, just no sugar, no carbs, and getting amazing results from depression and suicide and bipolar conditions and schizophrenia. This is irrefutable. But the other thing that's irrefutable is the public doesn't know this. Their government's not telling them. The news media is not telling them. Their doctors. Do you know what % of doctors are trained in nutrition? Less than 1%.
Yeah.
So that's done on purpose.
Yeah.
Because who's the biggest influencer of med school curriculums and the biggest donor? Big Pharma.
Big Pharma. Yeah.
Big Pharma doesn't want the doctor saying, hey, just quit eating sugar. You'll be fine. My doctor didn't tell me that. I found that out by accident, and it saved my life.
Yeah.
It saved my life. And the solution is simple. Don't eat sugar and processed foods. There's plenty of good stuff to eat. And in my book, I have a chapter there about the holistic diet that I went on. I say diet. It's just basically not eating sugar and processed foods. And my life changed in 21 days. And that's what I want everybody to do. In my book, I have a whole chapter that covers the same thing. It just says 21 days of your 30,000 days. It's all you got to do, and your life changes. And you mentioned you sort of relapse in Herb on the sugar. I don't crave it at all. I almost get nauseous when somebody pulls a dessert out at a dinner.
Yeah.
Because once you quit it, you don't crave it.
Right.
It just doesn't taste good. It makes me feel bad.
I went on a meat only diet. So I went on the carnivore diet. So I just had beef for 8 months. And
oh, wow.
Yeah. And the first time I did, I've done it twice for 8 months. And the first time I did it, it's like after about a week, I was like mowing my yard. And if I moved too fast, I like fell over in my yard and almost like went unconscious. And I learned that if I moved, I moved just slow enough, I could move all day long. But if I got moving too quick, then my blood sugar would drop and I would almost pass out. And I took that up to the point where I could start exercising normally after like 2 weeks. But the first couple of weeks without sugar, my body just it was like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But by the end of that, I had never felt that good in my life. But then we started traveling, we started moving around, and we traveled for a couple of months. And during that time, it's a lot harder, especially in America, to stay on that kind of a diet while you're traveling. And so that's why I fell off of it the first time. and ended up back into the sugar hole.
Now a few words about vibrant family education.
How many entrepreneurs and business owners start out on this journey to make a better life for their family, only to find that it took so much more time and effort than they were expecting that they had even less time for their family? I know I did.
At Vibrant Family Education, we want to help you reach your family goals while you're still building towards your business goals. We do this by bringing you the third leg of the stool to keep your family upright, family education development.
By bringing your children's education home, you will be able to model your work ethic and family values as you overcome obstacles and challenges to build your business. Instead of learning facts to pass tests, your children can be watching and seeing the dedication it takes to build your business and the legacy you want to create for their future. They will be able to witness the struggles and joys, the wins and the losses, and learn from you how to persevere and grow in life.
Instead of waiting until you get successful to spend more time with your family, start with the end goal in mind and bring your family home. Instead of trying to repair your family after you reach success, let us help you start achieving your family goals from the outset. Learn to be successful with your family now, and no matter what happens in the future, they will be better prepared for life, especially after watching how you cared for and built not only a business, but a healthy, happy, and successful family.
We offer a wide range of educational services, including how to easily get started with homeschooling. Come visit us at vibrantfamilyeducation.com and let us show you how. And now, back to our guest.
Well, look, Herb, when I did my first detox 8 years ago, I had no idea what was going to happen. And I do go to the gym, but I remember twice the first week I couldn't finish my workout. I was so weak, lethargic, and I was almost depressed.
Yeah.
But by day 7, suddenly my energy picked up. And by day 21, I'd lost 22 pounds, never dieted once, ate all I wanted.
Yeah.
And my blood pressure dropped from 160 over 100 down to 125 over 80, just by quitting sugar. I went to the doctor. I said, "Doctor, why do you have me on statins and blood pressure meds and diuretics? Why did you tell me to quit eating sugar?" He didn't even know.
Yeah.
I've gotten a dozen doctors and even my dentist off of sugar and processed foods. They don't know. They're not trained that way.
Right.
But it's like I detox twice a year now, 21 days, because it's easy to get off the path. That sugar sneaks in everywhere.
Yeah.
And my main vice is a glass of red wine, because alcohol does convert to sugar. That's the men's form of sugar. But I love the detox, and every time after my 21 days, I think, geez, why am I even drinking again? Or I feel so good.
Right.
But it gives you a reference. So everybody just needs to do 21 days and feel that difference, see the change. I can't tell how many people, diabetics, I've gotten off insulin now just by going through the program. And it's very simple, costs you nothing. Just 21 days.
Yeah, I tend to do extreme things as well. So my detox is usually a 7-day dry fast. So that's no food or water for 7 days. Towards the end of that 7 days, you feel pretty lousy, but a day or two of once you rehydrate, you feel amazing. And so it's called the Phoenix Protocol.
Now, one thing we do have to put in here is that these are our experiences. Rich has done the research, it's in his book, but please make sure you're being careful. Don't just go do something and not know what you're doing, right? Look into things. So, we're not doctors. We aren't the people who have all the quote unquote knowledge, but we have our experiences, we have our research, we have some good talking points and some good things to really think about, but make sure you are taking care of yourself and doing something that is good for you.
And the second part of that question earlier was when you were talking about good foods to eat, you did talk about fruit, and fruit does have sugar in it. And so that question there is does the sugar in fruit, does that trip you back into wanting more of the processed sugars? Does that lead you back down that hole?
That's interesting. And before I found out about sugar, I didn't like fruit. And the reason I didn't like it, it wasn't sweet enough for me. Right. Now fruit tastes really sweet, almost too sweet. I thought, wow. Yeah. But here's the thing you gotta realize. Fruit, when you eat the fruit entirely, has fiber. And there's two kinds of fibers, soluble fiber and non-soluble fiber. What they basically do is they coat your stomach lining from the time it goes to your mouth all the way down to reaches the gut bacteria. Coats with a it's like it's like a coating where it actually slows or prevents absorption of fructose. That's very important.
Wow.
Because this way the liver doesn't get stressed, and yet you're still feeding the gut. And you get to enjoy this. So fruit is fine, but be sure it's whole fruit. Fruit juice, you might as well drinking Coca-Cola or drinking a glass of poison. I mean, fruit juice has sugar and there's no fiber.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. So that's the difference. The fiber is the key.
What if you squeeze your own juice? So we have like a juice maker, and we would sometimes add fruit to it. I liked it with more pulp in it. She likes the pulp strained out. So if you're making your own fruit juice, is that the same as what you're talking about? Or are you talking about the processed fruit juices? Do you know the difference there?
Unfortunately, fruit juice causes insulin spikes because the fructose goes unimpeded to the liver. So if you're going to, I mean, you're better off just taking an orange and eating the whole orange. Just cut it in 4 slices and eat it. I just had one yesterday.
Yeah.
Fine, because I got that fiber, but you're not getting the fiber in the juice. You mentioned the pulp. You need a lot of pulp, but it's unfortunate, but it's just the way it is. I mean, it's just a fact of life. And you have to make those adjustments. I mean, we're not going to be perfect, but I don't have any sugar in my apartment, nothing. I don't have any processed food here. So I can't even get tempted to cheat. I get it idiot free, and I'm fine. If I go snack and I get a craving one night, I got pistachios, I got macadamias, I got almonds. They work great.
That was going to be
no sugar in it.
Yeah, that was going to be my next. That was going to be my next question. Give our families, give our audience some tips. How do we get away from the sugar? What can we do to make this happen? Because we know, because especially in the States, it's all around us.
Well, look, it just depends if you want to live healthily or spend your last 12 years with doctors and hospitals and die early. It just depends what you want in life. Yeah. And same thing for your kids and your family and your friends. It's up to you. I mean, it's just like tobacco. In my book, I've got a chapter called the Tobacco Template. It took us 50 years to get tobacco labeled, taxed, taken out of schools, taken out of the hospitals, restricted purchase, public service announcements, doctors getting off of it, the government getting behind it, everybody. The same thing is occurring for sugar. We're in year 10 of about a 30-year cycle. We're still 15 to 20 years away before sugar will be treated like tobacco. But it's a process. And I have arguments all the time when people say, "Oh, I'm a libertarian. You want restrictions." I say, "No, I want informed consent. Just let people know sugar is poison. Here's what it does to you. Here's what it will do to you. Here's what it will do to your kids. If you still want to do it, it's your choice. At least you're informed." But we reduced tobacco smoking from 42% down to 12%. Took us 50 years. We can do the same thing for sugar. Right now, think about this. The United States spends $4.3 trillion in healthcare, and more than the next 10 countries combined, and yet we got the worst outcome. And the majority of that is caused by chronic disease, which is caused by sugar and processed foods. It's that simple. It's just a fact of life. And we can deny it, or we can be informed. If we really care about our health, our kids' health, our family's health, then we'll take this book is an easy read. I didn't make it hard. But the point is, I kept it simple. Diets don't work. Diet industry is $85 billion industry. If a diet worked, there'd be no industry. It doesn't work. I don't propose a diet. I'm just saying don't eat sugar and processed food. That's it. Takes a little work.
It's the same thing with depression. It's like we have this huge epidemic of depression. We have more people now on antidepressive medications than at any point in history or any country. And if they worked, that rate should be going down. But the more people we put on antidepressants, then the more people we have to put on antidepressants. And if they just stopped eating sugar, then so many of them could come off their antidepressants. So again, we talked about Big Pharma, who also put all of these antidepressants out. And like you said earlier about the advertising, I think I was reading somewhere that 80% of the advertising budget in the United States now is Big Pharma advertising on radio and television. Wow. And so 80% of all the advertising dollars that you see on television is spent by Big Pharma promoting the stuff that first makes you sick and then supposedly helps you, but then just makes you an addict to whatever it is that they're doing. So it's like a very insidious program. And you're saying that just stopping sugar, just taking sugar completely out fixes almost all of that.
Look, I'm 80. I'm in perfect health. I take no medication. I have a very active life. And it's like, all I did was one thing, just quit sugar. That's it.
And you wrote a book.
Now, yeah, well, no, it is, but it's we're up against big money. I mean, this you just hit it. I mean, the system. I'll tell you what. One thing is not on my book, and I found this out afterwards. I wish I'd had it in there.
Yeah.
But you can Google the richest man in the history of the world, John D. Rockefeller,
Mm-hmm.
and Google John D. Rockefeller allopathic medicine, ALOPATHIC medicine. Because when his empire started crumbling, just like the big tobacconist empire was crumbling, when his empire, they started attacking the antitrust stuff, breaking up big oil.
Mm-hmm.
He just said, well, how can I make more money? What can I do to move into? And he decided it was pharmaceuticals. He saw a lot of application of oil into pharmaceuticals. So he brought a guy named Andrew Meissner, a German scientist doctor, in to create this system called allopathic medicine, which basically is you prescribe pills for everything. And they poo-pooed holistic medicine and Western and Eastern medicine, anything to do with preventive medicine. They said, you're a charlatan. Doctors lost their licenses. And they've created this whole system of giving everybody expects a pill to cure their condition, to help them. Well, these pills are treating the symptoms of sugar addiction. The doctor should be saying, you don't need a pill, just quit eating sugar, you'll be fine. But they're not doing that because there's no money in that, not a dime.
One thing that we talk about when we talk with our families is, do the healthy lifestyle of not only quitting sugar, like you're saying, but go outside and get your sunshine, go outside and be active, put the electronics down, do things that help build you up instead of let you deteriorate just by sitting around.
Well, you hit on a real important topic, Kristina. One of my chapters is called Keep It Simple, Stupid, and the Big Three. The big three are what you eat, real food, exercise, and sleep.
Yep.
They're all tied together.
They are.
If you're not eating real food, do you have lower energy and you're putting weight on? So the last thing you want to do is exercise. The last thing. And then if you're not exercising, not eating real food, it affects your sleep. If you're not getting 7 to 8 hours a night of just unimpeded great sleep, where you wake up in the morning, you remember your dreams, you're remming. I mean, like I sleep 7, 8 hours every night. Never taking a pill to sleep. And it's like, but if that sleep's impeded, that affects your immune system. If your immune system's compromised, you get chronic disease. If you're not exercising, then all that's bad. The only reason I'm still alive today is because at least I was working out, I was doing some exercise back when I was sick. The only reason I'm still alive. But I go to the gym 4 days a week at 8. You couldn't get me out of the gym, and I walk the other days. They're all tied together. But if you're not eating real food, those other two are not going to work. And sugar and processed foods are not real food. It's that simple. Yeah. This is not rocket science.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes, I'm not sure who said it, but is, if you don't eat your food like it's medicine, then you'll be eating your medicine like it's your food. And that's really happening right now. So when you eat, it is important what you eat. And if you use your food as medicine for your life, then you don't have to take medicine later in life to replace the food that you're not getting. So
you're right, Herb, but I leave that out of my book because nobody wants to take medicine. So I don't say it that way. Mm-hmm. But I do attack it a little bit harder. Basically, I'm just saying you're eating poison, and which you are. And sugar doesn't kill you immediately. It kills you slowly and softly and feeds the medical industrial complex with their trillions of dollars of profits they're making by keeping us sick. And it's so sad. And, nothing is coming out of Washington, D.C. It's got to be a grassroots movement. If you guys can touch a couple of people's lives about sugar, if I can touch them, we just all do it together, build up. At some point, Washington, D.C. is going to cave. But right now, they're not caving. There's 634 members of Congress. Do you know how many lobbyists Big Pharma has? Just Big Pharma alone, 1,860. That's just Big Pharma.
Yeah,
and it's like
congressperson.
You can't get reelected if you're not taking money from those guys. And if you ever said a bad word about sugar, you wouldn't make. You'd be out. Yeah. So this is what we're up against, and we've got to do this thing together. It's a grassroots movement, but it's starting. I know what's going on around the world. I know doctors getting informed. I know one doctor in LA, it's, you know, his latest book is The Lies They Told Me in Medical School. Dr. Casey Means out of Stanford, same thing. She had to unlearn everything they taught her. Doctors are starting to understand and get involved. They're talking. It's starting to happen. And one day Washington's going to wake up. But I don't know if you guys watched the debate a week ago. There was 2 words that President Biden and President Trump did not say, not mentioned once. The biggest killer of Americans, chronic disease.
Yep.
Not a peep.
Not a peep.
Because those money handlers wouldn't let either one of them mention that at all.
Right.
So it's sad. But we're going to get through this, and hopefully, I can be an inspiration to some people. My book is it's if they read it, they'll get it, they'll understand it, and we got to save these kids because we're destroying these kids.
Yep. And that's why we're here. You know, Vibrant Family Education is all about the kids, all about the families, making a difference in their lives so that they can have a happy, healthy, and successful future. One of the things that I wanted to bring in right now, because you mentioned her before we joined the show, was one of our previous guests, Jen Bruce. And when she was talking about kids and nutrition and everything, we asked her, how do you let the kids understand that they don't need the sugar or they don't need the, you know, the different things that taste good? And she said, one of the things you do is once you are able to clean up their diet and get the sugar away from them, and then they go back to it, ask them, how did you feel when you had that little bit of sugar at the birthday party or whatever, that special occasion? And lots of times, once they clue into that, they're like, oh, I didn't feel good after I ate that, or, oh, I did feel off, or I felt more, whatever. And then that helps them understand. So then you don't have to be the bad guy. You don't have to be the cop. They're learning it as you're helping them understand themselves and their bodies. So that is another way our families can work together to help this be a positive experience for our kids.
And one of my mantras during the time when I was eating way more healthy than I am now was, I feel better than that tastes.
Mm-hmm.
And that kept me on the straight and narrow for a really long time because I felt great and I didn't want to drop back into the way I had been feeling. So I feel better than that's going to taste was a big one for me.
You're right about the kids, and if we can turn them into advocates, they can be our greatest advocates. I mean, and think about it. I go back to the seatbelt thing. I spent most of my life without a seatbelt on. I used to sit on mine, but now you don't have your seatbelt on. That kid, that you say, Grandpa, put that seatbelt on. And it's like we got to make them the same way about sugar.
Yep.
But they don't have a chance as long as they're addicted to it. But like you just said, it's so brilliantly, is like if they experience how good they feel without it, then they're going to know.
Yep.
And the only way they're going to know that if moms today just do 21 days, just 21 days, no sugar for your kids, and see what happens to those kids. Measure their insulin levels, see how much weight they lose, watch their energy levels. It's 21 days. We're here for 30,000 days. It's just 21 days. It's nothing.
And that is one of our biggest things when people do take their kids out of school for Vibrant Family Education, is to clean up their diet, is to get them off of the sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, we didn't quite know as much as you do about it, but we knew how bad it was. And so, cleaning up the sugar, getting them eating from the outside aisles of the grocery store, stay out of the middle of the grocery stores, all those fun little memes and tips. Mm-hmm. But the diet, getting clean, healthy water, it has always been like a core tenet of why we want to help parents get their kids out of school. Because while they're in school and they're out of your care, I mean, the teachers give them snacks in class. The parents come in and give them cupcakes. It's like this nonstop barrage. Mm-hmm. So while in school, it's nearly impossible for the kids to eat and stay healthy, especially with so much influence coming at them.
Got to start at home. We got to get them educated at home and make them advocates. They'll be our frontline offense in the future, making this happen. So, but it starts at home. And I had that chapter about the mother's love affair with sugar. Unfortunately, the moms, they're the biggest lovers of sugar. They love their chocolates and their ice cream and all the rest of that stuff. And I'll tell you, next time you guys are out to dinner, I want you to do this with another couple or 2 couples.
Mm-hmm.
You've had a nice dinner, and then afterwards the waiter comes up, and what's the waiter say?
What would you like for
coffee or dessert? Yep. Okay, now I want you to watch, and I'm not a misogynist. I love women, trust me, but I just want you to watch the women's eyes at the table when the waiter says the word dessert, because their eyes go like that. And then they'll say, hey, honey, why don't we split a dessert? You know? I mean,
Well, that never
it's
happens.
just
That never
That
happens.
never happens.
We
Never.
don't have that happen. No, and we're totally joking. Yes, I agree. I understand. I am addicted to sugar and I love my sweets. But it's one of the things that I really, really try to focus on is like once in a while, because I also know that if I fight against it too much, then I start resenting. I start like, oh my gosh, this isn't, so it's one of those things.
you're our front line of defense, Kristina.
I know.
You're our front. That's why there's a woman's picture there. I'm sorry, but we need you guys to lead the charge.
Yep. No,
We need you to do it.
we're trying. That's part of the reason why we have you on the podcast. That's part of the reason we're talking to families the way we do. Is like happy, healthy, successful. That's our mantra. Let's make our kids happy, healthy, successful in the future.
Well, drop me your address, and I'll send you. I'm on Amazon, and I'll send you a copy of the book. I'd love to have you guys get really really understand this.
Absolutely.
And kid, it's like I just got such a heart for the kids, and they don't have a chance right now.
Mm-hmm.
No.
And it's like to not outlive their parents, this generation.
Yes.
And the
That
news
is
media will
very
spin a
sad.
different way. They'll say, well, it's because of drugs or because of they're not disciplined, they're not exercise. They blame it on us. Kids aren't exercising, it's their fault.
Yeah. So, weird simple thing is like McDonald's French fries. McDonald's French fries are like the best French fries, but they coat them in sugar before they in the process so that they get that nice crispy brown outside. So even French fries at McDonald's are coated in sugar to
Well,
to
not only
make
that,
Careful.
what kind of oil? They're fried in a seed oil.
Yeah.
Seed
that's
oils are bad for you. They're almost as
bad for
bad
you.
for you as sugar.
Yep.
No, it's
Yeah.
there's nothing in McDonald's that I would drink
No.
or eat other maybe the water.
Yep. This has been a great discussion, Rich. Thank you so very, very much for bringing your insight, your inspiration, and really helping families understand that this really is a desperate need. We really need to make sure that we're looking at this, taking action on it, and helping our families and our kids. Would you please make sure you let everybody know again where they can get your book and how to contact you if they have questions? What can we drop in the show notes for people?
Well, I mean, basically the book is Killing You Softly, How Sugar is Killing Us. It's on Amazon, Ingram, Barnes and Noble. You can order Kindle or the hard copy. I'm not in this thing to make the money. I mean, I don't really need to be working right now, but my life was saved by an absolute miracle 8 years ago by the grace of God. And that's, he said, well, I'm alive for a reason.
Yeah.
And my reason is try to save some lives with this book. That's all it is. And so, I mean, as far as reaching me, you could reach me on my website. It's primaverarealtymedellin.com, primaverarealtymedellin.com, or just Google Rich Holman.
Yeah.
I could give you the email address. It's a little bit long.
No, it's okay.
It'll be in the show
but
notes
you guys,
below.
no, okay. But you guys are on track. I mean, we just got to fine tune a little bit. But you guys are right there, and you both look great. By the way, I'm not sure how old either one of you are, but you both look like you could be in your 20s. So you're doing
Thank
something
you.
right.
Appreciate that.
Well, we were both born in 1970, so we're hardcore Gen Xers.
Oh,
So we're both
the way you look.
54.
And one thing else I'll mention, I'm looking at both of you guys' skin. I cover this in my book in the chapter about the women's love affair with sugar. Sugar is the worst thing for your skin.
Mm-hmm.
The worst. The reason women have to wear so much makeup because they're eating sugar and processed foods. I've seen women don't eat sugar and their skin is like flawless. And they're in the 50s, 60s, and 70s even.
Yeah.
So, gals, I'm trying to motivate. We gotta save our kids. You gotta lead that charge, Kristina.
Absolutely. You got it. We are here doing it right now today. Thank you, Rich, so much for your time and for giving us the information from your book and really helping to inspire our family. It's been a great conversation.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the problem that you had and the life-saving advice that you got, and instead of just keeping that for yourself, you're sharing it with the world. So many people see problems and have problems, and they just bury it, do it for themselves, and then just move on. And you're out there trying to change the world. So you are a hero. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing what you do. And thank you for sharing such an important message with us today.
Thank you for your kind words. And it's my pleasure being here. God bless you both.
Thank you very much. All right, audience, that's it for today. But please make sure you do something with the information that you got today. Don't just put it in your pocket. Take it out, use it, make a change for your family. Make sure your kids are happy, healthy, and successful. Until next time, bye for now.
Bye for now. Hello and welcome to Bringing Education Home. I'm Herb.
And I'm Kristina. And together we bring you experts